Unbeaten American Rolando Romero was set to take on fellow American and southpaw Gervonta Davis December 5th, but the fight has never been canceled. Romero, who was the former owner of the WBA interim lightweight title until August of this year, has now been replaced with ACCUSE. Today we're discussing allegation of sexual assault against Romero plus other news from the world of boxing, so stay tuned. First up, who exactly is Rolando Romero? Romero comes from humble beginnings and would regularly hear gunshots ringing through his Las Vegas neighborhood as a child. He was raised amid gang violence, and when he was 7, one of his best friend's brothers was shot and killed. Sounds crazy, right? Romero then began training in judo as a 9-year-old alongside his sister, who went on to become a 7-time national champion. Safe to say, he comes from pretty decent combat stock then. Rolly, as he is known to friends and family, didn't start boxing until he was 16, which is pretty late to getting into the ring in all fairness. He said he took inspiration from the London Olympics in 2012 and admitted it was tough for him at the time as he had never sparred and kids his own age had been boxing for years. After a short trip to Cuba further piqued his interest in the sport, he started to compete as an amateur. His amateur career caught the eye of Floyd Mayweather, and a visit to Floyd's gym prompted the legendary fighter to sign Romero. And the rest, as they say, is history. Romero turned pro in 2016 and his first fight ended in a 1-minute stoppage win. He's been on a tear ever since. So what of these sexual abuse claims? Don't go anywhere as we're discussing this next. It seems as though the fighter might be in hot water, being pulled from the Davis fight after several women came forward claiming the fighter had assaulted them. This is not good for Romero, who was quietly making his way through the lightweight ranks after numerous KO and TKO wins. Romero claims the allegations are totally false and has shown his intention to clear his name. However, one of his accusers says initially she couldn't go to police for help due to intense fear and paralysis due to the incident. They had been playing a game of Connect 4 when Romero allegedly assaulted her. She went on to explain that she didn't think anybody would believe her, especially because of who her alleged assailant was. Unfortunately, the lady is not the only accuser for Romero, and although we would never jump to any conclusions before someone has had their day in court, it doesn't look good when multiple people come forward. Romero has commented on the issue, however, saying, "Although the allegations against me are totally false, and I will prove that through the legal system, I agree that it is the best interest of everyone involved that I not participate in the upcoming pay-per-view event." He went on to add, "After clearing my name, I will return to the ring as soon as possible." What do you think about these allegations? Let the record show that we are making no judgment whatsoever about any of these claims. News from former champ Carl Froch next. Stay with us. Ex-champ and Nottingham, England resident Cal Froch has insinuated that he thinks he would have beaten Mexican legend Canelo Alvarez in his heyday. We're not so sure about this one, Carl. He went on to claim that he'd have beaten the 2019 version of Canelo, who beat Sergey Kovalev. The Mexican's performance apparently reminded him of Arthur Abraham, who Froch dismantled pretty easily in 2010. There have been claims recently that Canelo has turned into a one-punch slugger at this point in his career, although we don't necessarily agree with that assessment. Froch, who has one reason or another quit the game at the peak of his power, says he would have hammered Canelo with combinations if he'd have been there with him at his peak. Well, why didn't he stick around to see if that would have been the case then? Rather than going on to take the Andre Ward rematch or test himself against Triple G, Froch decided to call it a day. What do you guys think of Froch's claims? Do you think the Englishman would have had enough to see off Canelo? Let us know below. Someone who's had his name on Froch's claim is Joe Calzaghe. Rather unsurprisingly, middleweight legend and unbeaten fighter Joe Calzaghe has had his say on Froch's claims. He didn't flat out deny that Froch would have had what it takes to do a job on the Mexican, but he did disagree with his assessment that he reminds him of Arthur Abraham these days. We all know Canelo has a lot more in his locker than Abraham ever did. Calzaghe, who once beat Jeff Lacey with one hand after breaking it early in the fight, insinuated that it was easier for Froch to say than it would have been for him to actually do. That's easier said than done, isn't it? Calzaghe said when reacting to Froch, saying he'd have beaten Canelo like he did Abraham. I wouldn't really put Canelo in the same league as Arthur Abraham, if I'm honest. We feel ya, Joe. What was your favorite Calzaghe performance? Let us know below. We're talking Canelo's upcoming fight this weekend next. Stay right where you are. During the press conference this week for their title fight this weekend, Canelo Alvarez and Caleb Plant did not face off. Probably understandable, as the last time the two men stood face to face, Canelo slapped Plant. Two men came to to blows earlier in their press tour after some pretty choice words from Plant. Both fighters retained their composure during the press conference this week, though even there was no face-off at the end of it. Canelo told us his emotions were under control because this is what I do. What was your excuse last time then, Mr. Alvarez? He went on to explain that this one is more personal than the Golovkin fight. This fight is personal, even more than the second Golovkin fight, for everything that happened in the press conference in Los Angeles, so I will punish Caleb Plant even more. I'm looking forward to hurting my opponent in the ring, and I will do so. Seems as though he is absolving himself of any responsibility for attacking Plant then. Plant went on to explain that the face-off was not canceled at his request, but the authorities themselves has canceled it. I guess they didn't want things spiraling out of control again. How do you see this one going, guys? Another win for Canelo, or are you going with the upset? Tim Tszyu has also chimed in on Canelo this week. Rather controversially, some might say, Tim Tszyu claimed this week that Mexican superstar Canelo is beatable. He went on to say that he can see himself sharing the ring with the Mexican one day and gave us an idea of his winning mentality. Tszyu and Canelo are currently separated by a couple of weight classes and a lot of experience, but Tszyu said he expects to move up to super middleweight during the natural progression of his career and body. He said Canelo does a lot of things very well, but there is no such thing as a perfect boxer. He's beatable, and I'd love the opportunity to take a fight against someone like him, says Tszyu. Good luck, Tim. How do you see this one playing out further down the line? News of the Crawford-Porter undercard next. Stay tuned. Terrence Bud Crawford and Showtime Sean Porter are set to face off on November 20th, and we have news of the fights on their undercard. The penultimate fight of the night will be a 12-round IBF middleweight world title eliminator featuring two unbeaten fighters in Esquiva La Pantera Falcao and Patrice Volny. Someone zero has to go, and we are super excited for this one. Also added to the card is a middleweight bout between Janibek Qazakhstal Anna Hananuli and ex-world champ Hassan Danam. We will also see a lightweight battle between up-and-comers Raymond Danger Murtala and Steven Ortiz, both of whom also boast unbeaten records. Which one of these matchups are you most looking forward to seeing? Give us your predictions in the comments section below. We're finishing with some MMA crossover news next, so stay right there. Ex-UFC heavyweight champ Junior Dos Santos fancies a crack at the boxing heavyweight division, apparently. He referenced his boxing skills in MMA and said everyone knew him as a capable striker. The Brazilian has recently signed a fight deal with SJAM Boxing and has promised not to be a flash in the pan in the boxing ring. After multiple recent failures of former UFC stars in the boxing ring, Dos Santos has promised to train every day. We thought that was generally expected, Junior. If he is successful, he'll stop the rot of former UFC fighters losing in the boxing ring, including Conor McGregor, who to be fair put in a good show against Floyd Mayweather, Tyron Woodley, and Ben Askren, who both lost to Jake Paul, rather embarrassingly. The less said about the Askren fight, the better really. How do you see JDS faring in the ring? Hopefully he doesn't call out Tyson Fury. That probably wouldn't go too well. Thanks for tuning in today, friends, and as always, remember to join us next time for some more fun. Bye, guys.